when I first went on when I went on my first operational training exercise, I had done what's called the Section Commander's Battle Course, which is an infantry course that is like for section commanders, and you learn all the different levels of section commander, platoon sergeant, platoon commander, but it's a tactics course in the British Army that is specific to the infantry. So we went in this operational training exercise, and I remember we were doing these ranges, these firing ranges, and like I was the newest guy in the troop, and I had also I had been fresh in these skills. I had done the course the year before, and we were doing infantry specific drills that no one was really that fresh on. Everyone was a little bit rusty. So I remember the troop staff sergeant at the time, he said to me, "You're the most current with this skill set, so you're in charge. You have to tell us what we're doing." And it was like, holy shit, I'm the new guy. But again, I embraced that and stepped into that moment and says, right, okay, there's a reason why he's asked me, because I am the most current with this. I am clued up on it. I do know what I'm doing. And people will literally put their ego aside and say, right, what do you want us to do? Which is, again, was an eye opener for me, because, there's no kind of ego involved with, people have been in longer, you're the new boy, they want to be in charge. That was like, you're the most relevant guy for this task, so you take charge. And I always remember feeling really proud of that, and just, feeling nervous, but at the same time thinking, yeah, okay, I got this. So situations like that didn't allow much time for imposter syndrome to kick in. I think imposter syndrome kicks in more when you have time. So because that was off the cuff, and it was like, we're here now, you're doing it now. It's like, right, I don't have any fucking time to think about this. I don't have time to second guess myself, to get in my own head. I've just got to get on with it. So it takes away the thought process in that sense. So you don't have time to get in your own head. Whereas when you are maybe going into a new job, and you've got time to sit back and think about it, or you've got something coming up that you might have maybe a couple of weeks, a couple of months to prepare for it, that's when you tend to, I think that's when most people tend to get into their own heads and go, fuck, am I good enough for this? Am I ready for this? So I think cutting down the time lessens the chance of imposter syndrome. Sure.
I think that's a great point. What do they say? The devil dreams on an idle mind. If your brain
Absolutely.
isn't,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
your brain's not actively
Yeah.
locked in on something, is there a memory where you thought to yourself, I want to talk about like situations where it was a super dicey close call. Is there anything you can talk about, or anything that ever happened to you where you're like, shit, that got a little too dicey, a little too hairy. We almost bit off a little more than we could chew. Did you ever have a super close call, whether it be training or the real world deployments? And what did you do to handle anything of that nature?
I've spoken about one particular occasion before, and I've experienced this many times in my life, in many different situations. You know that feeling when something happens and you kind of just deal with it in the moment, but then later on when you're sat there with a cup of tea, you're going, holy fuck, like I could have died. And then that's when it kicks in. It's the retrospect that you get from the aftermath, when you got time to mull over things and you go, holy shit. That I think is what, when you hear of people getting PTSD and stuff like that, a lot of the time it stems from that mechanism. So it's not that something happened like physically, or something that was maybe traumatic, from a sense of it injured someone or killed someone. Sometimes it can be the what ifs that get in your head that really, ferment in that over time as well. Like, a good friend of mine, um, when we were in Northern Ireland back in the 90s, he found a command wire. So my best friend, he found this command wire, which was rigged up to a device. And intelligence told us that there was intent, that this command wire was linked to a device that was going to be initiated on one of our mobile patrols that was going out from the RUC station, which is it's now the police force Northern Ireland, but it was then the Royal Ulster Constabulary, which was the police force in Northern Ireland at the time, before the Good Friday Agreement, and when the Troubles were still very much a thing. Um, And my friend found this command wire, and we obviously put in a massive cordon and stuff, and took care of it and neutralized the threat, if you like. But intelligence then told us that the intent was to take out one of our mobile patrols. So my friend actually ended up getting post-traumatic stress because he remembered this, and it was the what ifs. It was the thought of what would have happened hadn't he found the command wire, that played in his mind for years afterwards. And he found it years later that it was from that it actually triggered this form of post-traumatic stress. But nothing actually happened. We found it in time to, take care of that. But a lot of the time that is what happens. And a particular time for me anyway that always sticks out in my mind is the first time that we ever got shot at. We were on this it was over in Iraq. We were opened up on from this building that was probably a couple of 100 meters away, and it was in the old Pink Panther Land Rovers at the time, and I was driving. My mate was in the commander seat, and one of the other lads was on the gun. So we were doing the normal extraction drill of getting out of the killing zone basically. So we were sort of like doing fire maneuver backwards where one vehicle was covering the other. And as we were going back, the rounds were actually hitting off the vehicle. So that we were actually opened up on, and the rounds were like fucking like so close. And I remember just thinking at the time, is the next one gonna go through my fucking face? Right. But at the time, what was really weird is that, and it sounds so fucking crazy when you think about it. At the time, when we were under fire, like I started kind of laughing. Like I found humor in the moment because it was almost like an unconscious defense mechanism that kicked in, that you kind of find it funny, which it's not funny, but I guess it's your body's natural way of dealing with something that is an immediate threat just to get you through the situation. As that fight or flight kicks in, um, and your nervous system finds a way to deal with it. And a lot of the time you don't have control over that. Thankfully, that's what happened to me, because it wasn't until afterwards that I thought back and was like, holy shit, any of us could have, or all of us could have been killed then. Yeah, it could have been that bad. If I was taken out, the vehicle stops, and then, others could have been killed. But at the time, I think you just find a way, your nervous system finds a way to get you through the immediate danger. And it's not until afterwards that you think back and go, yeah, that was pretty close. Could have
That
died.
that's a great story. You mentioned PTSD. I didn't